As we sit here discussing missile defense, some people elsewhere in the world are discussing missile attack.
On behalf of RUSI, it's my great pleasure to welcome the Secretary-General of NATO, Anders Fogh Rasmussen. He is a leading European politician, not to mention a three-term Prime Minister of Denmark. Some people forget, of course, that during his first premiership, Denmark held the presidency of the Council, which at that time was concerned with the enlargement of the European Union by 10 new member states. He was elected Secretary-General of NATO, and in that position has taken on NATO at this most challenging of times. He's agreed to speak to us today about ballistic missile defense. The Lisbon summit laid out that NATO would have a BMD system, that it would invite Russia to cooperate in that system, and he intends to speak to us today about the need of NATO for a BMD system, the need for that system to involve transatlantic cooperation, and its need also to involve cooperation with Russia. Everything he says at the podium here will be on the record, but following the RUSI rule, everything he says afterwards in response to question and answer will be strictly off the record. And so I'm very pleased indeed to welcome our keynote speaker, the Secretary-General of NATO, Mr. Rasmussen. Sir.
Professor Clark, ladies and gentlemen, this annual conference has become the point of reference for discussion on missile defense. It brings together experts from a wide range of countries, from governments and from industry. And I want to thank you for inviting me to contribute to your discussion. Missile defense is particularly important for our alliance. And it has the potential to fundamentally change how NATO works with other nations to build lasting security and stability. Last November, at the NATO summit in Lisbon, we agreed to develop a missile defense capability. We also invited Russia to cooperate with us. Those decisions were the culmination of over 8 years of discussions. And they initiated a major alliance program of work. This work has two parallel tracks, one that is purely internal and one that is external with Russia. And the work is progressing on both. In my remarks today, I want to answer three questions. Why do we need missile defense? Why do we need transatlantic cooperation to make it work? And why do we want to cooperate with Russia? Let me start with why we need it. As we sit here discussing missile defense, some people elsewhere in the world are discussing missile attack. Over 30 states either already have or are developing a missile technology. These missiles can be fitted with conventional warheads or with weapons of mass destruction. Some of them can already reach parts of NATO territory. Others can threaten NATO interests. And all the time, technology is advancing. Ranges are increasing. Accuracy and payloads are increasing. And the number of countries with a proven capability is increasing. We cannot ignore these trends. We cannot afford to have even one of our cities hit. We cannot take the risk of doing nothing. missile threats are real, and our defense must be real. NATO is responsible for the defense and protection of our territory and the 900 million people who live on it. This is our raison d'être, and this is why we have to take action. We need to demonstrate our determination to defend and protect our citizens, to defend and protect our territory, and to defend and protect our forces. At the same time, this will demonstrate that we will not be coerced or intimidated by proliferation programs. This is why NATO needs missile defense. It is why we agreed that missile defense is a core element of our collective defense. And it is why we have decided to develop a missile defense capability to protect NATO European populations, territory, and forces. And this leads me to my second point. Why is transatlantic cooperation necessary to protect NATO European allies? Building effective missile defense is challenging, but it can be done. We are already building a NATO system to protect deployed troops from missile attack. It is tried and tested technology, and we have already demonstrated that it works. We have agreed to expand the capability of this system so it can also protect NATO European populations and territory. We will do this in stages. This staged approach means we can include the latest technical developments, we can adapt to an evolving threat, and we can ensure we stay at least one step ahead. A key contribution to this expanded system to protect European territory comes from the United States. And it is this transatlantic element that makes our missile defense system so significant, both militarily and politically. The United States has decided to do it on a multilateral basis in NATO. It will share its capability with allies to help protect them too. And it will share the decision-making with allies so they are involved in choosing the right responses. At a time when some are voicing concerns that the United States is disengaging from Europe, this contribution to missile defense is an extremely strong signal of Americans' continuing commitment to our continent. It is warmly welcomed by all allies, and the first elements will deploy to Europe later this year. But the United States' contribution on its own is not enough. To be effective in protecting all European allied territory, the American assets need to be accompanied by other nations' missile defense sensors and interceptors. 7 European allies already contribute their national missile defense systems for the protection of allied forces. We now need European allies to contribute to territorial missile defense too. And all these national elements need to be integrated into a single NATO network. This is the essence of NATO missile defense for Europe. It is all about bringing allies' individual contributions together into one unified system. It is a strong signal that Europe and North America are committed to transatlantic security. It will bind them closer together and it will make our alliance even stronger. Our goal is to have an interim capability by the time of our summit next year. At the same time, it achieves economies of scale. It offers far better protection than if allies deployed their assets on a purely national basis. And it perfectly illustrates the benefits of what I call smart defense. In times of economic difficulty, the smart defense approach means we can do together what we cannot do alone. It allows us to deliver better security for all, not by spending more money, but by spending more time and effort on multinational cooperation and coordination. NATO provides the coherence, and it ensures that allies can plug their own capabilities into a common system. Missile defense for Europe also underlines why NATO's transatlantic role will continue to be critical for our security. We will coordinate the contributions of allies from both sides of the Atlantic. We will provide the glue to hold everything together with our command and control system. And we will provide the political consultation and decision-making framework for collective defense. Now, let me turn to my third point. Why do we want to cooperate with Russia? Large parts of Russia and many Russian citizens face a missile threat too. And NATO is convinced that cooperating with Russia on missile defense is in the interest of all of us, NATO allies and Russia. It makes sense politically, it makes sense practically, and it makes sense militarily. What does not make sense is for Russia to talk about spending billions of rubles on a new offensive system to target the West. This type of rhetoric is unnecessary. This type of thinking is out of date. This type of investment is a waste of money because we are not a threat to Russia. We will not attack Russia. We will not undermine the security of Russia. The threats to Russia come from elsewhere. And our invitation to cooperate on missile defense is proof of that. So where are we on our cooperation? From the beginning, the Allied position has been very clear. We are not talking about a single system. We have taken a decision to build an allied system. That is a reality, and that will not change. What we are talking about is synergy between our NATO system and a Russian system. The reason for this is simple. NATO has collective defense obligations which bind all allies. And our territorial missile defense system will be part of our collective defense framework. We cannot outsource our collective defense obligations to non-NATO members. And actually, I am equally convinced that Russia would not want to give up any of its sovereignty either. Last week in Brussels, NATO and Russian defense ministers discussed the next steps in our missile defense cooperation. we all understand that the foundation for our cooperation must be confidence and trust. We could build them through agreeing on political principles and objectives for future cooperation on missile defense. And this should be our next step. Russia says it wants guarantees. We can give these by agreeing that our systems will not undermine the strategic balance, that they will strengthen each other's security and not weaken it. But I remain convinced that the best guarantee for Russia is to be part of the process and to be connected to the system. We should focus on actual cooperation, not abstract questions. This is the best way to enhance transparency and confidence. And it builds up the mutual trust that is necessary to take the key decisions we need to take. We have already made good progress on a number of areas, including on the basis of Russian ideas for joint centers. For example, we could envisage setting up a joint center where we could look at the ballistic missile threat together, share early warning data, exchange information, and share assessments. We could also envisage setting up a joint center where we could coordinate our responses. And let me emphasize the word coordinate. It would allow us to ensure we select the best and most appropriate response. This is the very reason why cooperation between NATO and Russia is important, because it can lead to a more effective missile defense capability for both of us. But it can lead to so much more, too. Missile defense cooperation can create a virtuous circle. It can help us to build the confidence and trust to tackle some of the more difficult issues in our relationship. It provides a unique opportunity for us to build greater security and stability across the entire Euro-Atlantic area. And it could lead to a sea change in the way we look at our relations. That is a political goal worth working hard for. And by taking the political decision to trust each other, it's a goal we can achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that many of you here today are intimately involved in delivering NATO's missile defense capability. And I would like to thank you for your work. And please keep up your efforts, because with your help, we can achieve our goal of an interim NATO capability at our summit next year. And I hope we can announce closer cooperation with Russia, too. That would be progress well worth celebrating. An effective missile defense is a vital capability for the alliance. It reinforces our transatlantic solidarity. It provides an opportunity for us to work more closely with Russia, and it could be a real game changer in the way NATO and Russia deliver Euro-Atlantic security. We could build security with each other rather than against each other. Our past was divided through fear and suspicion. our future can be shared through cooperation and confidence. Thank you very much.